Hi,
Hi.
hello, good morning.
Good morning. How are you all? I can see there are a lot
Uh,
of people.
yeah, there are, and few students are in the lecture right now, so they will join at 12, by 12.
Yes, yes.
So, how are you doing? How was your morning?
I'm all good, all good. Yes, I'm excited to talk to you all. So let's see.
Thank you. Thank you so much. It's our honor to have you with us.
I can see some faces here, though most of the video and audio is off, but I do see some faces and it makes me feel a little less jittery, addressing to a crowd of people when I can see their faces. So it'll be great if I can see everybody's faces. Of course, your choice is your own.
Yeah,
Depending, I can understand, this medium is such where the background and be conscious people. But if I can see faces, it'll be nice. It's more like a conversation. We're here to just talk. Talk not like the typical that someone is delivering, but more conversation.
right, right. So, on this note, students, I request all of you to turn on your cameras. Get comfortable. I hope you're all in a situation where you can put it on. If not, then make yourself and then turn it. We'll sharp 12. And
Sure, absolutely. Please take your time. Whenever you say.
how was the situation of COVID in Kolkata?
These are uncertain times, and I was expecting to be in office when I confirmed to you, and I'm not in office now because Calcutta is shut down today. We are on lockdown,
Okay.
so we have these 2 or 3 days of lockdown.
City.
I'm really not sure how it helps the cause of corona, but that's what we are doing here.
Yeah. We don't have anything like that in Gujarat. No special days when it's all closed. I mean, so
Okay.
it's different from how it is in Kolkata. Yeah.
Yes, I understand. I think it's good. I think I prefer what's happening in Gujarat there because day in isolation, I'm not sure how it's going to help the cause. But he can. I'm sure the people
Right.
who are deciding know. I mean, they know more than us. Assuming that.
Right. Yes. Yes. As they say, Didi, as you all say, I will call her Didi.
Preeti, is it possible that we have the previous view? Only if somebody wants to have me absolutely on the speaker view, they can pin because here it is seeming like I'm talking to myself.
Okay.
So it's a little
Yeah.
awkward for
I can
me.
ask
But if you want to keep this view, I'm okay with it.
Tanishk, can we do that? He's a student from MassCom and he's handling this technical stuff. Tanishk, can we do it?
Whatever seems best to all of you all.
Uh, yes, ma'am. Yeah, so I was not aware, ma'am. What you want to do? Hello. Yes, ma'am. What you are expecting to me to do?
What were you saying, Vikram? Which view did
I
you
was
mention?
asking, can we have the thumbnail view where everyone can be seen rather than just me being seen and it looks like I'm talking to myself?
Yeah, yes, sir. Sure. Yes. Yeah. So I just gave a spotlight.
Please take your time. Please take your time. There's no rush.
Done, sir. Done. It's done.
Fine. Hi, good noon, everybody. Welcome USLM. Welcome to this webinar, a special webinar, I would say, because we're going to talk about noble social cause here. And as Sir mentioned, it's not, talk means only Sir would be speaking. It's not like that. So you can come up and ask questions that you have. I'm certainly going to talk about the housekeeping in a while. But before that, let me introduce the topic and the speaker of the talk. So, yes, I welcome you all on behalf of United World School of Liberal Arts and Mass Communication, Karnavati University. I'm Dr. Preeti Nakad and I'm the moderator for the day. Well, the webinar is an organ donation, awareness of that. So, on this, I'd like to say that give yourself and those in need an elixir of life by pledging your organs. A part of you will still be here after you're gone. Organ donation is the biggest gift. Please think about it. Organ donation is the biggest gift that you can give to yourself and to someone who is fighting for his life. A much needed topic, a much needed awareness for which we've gathered here, and the expert is already with us, Mr. Vikram Baid. Now I would like to introduce Vikram to all of you. He's the co-founder of the organization Live King Size, Die King Size. That is just one part of his personality and life, but he's a multi-talented person. I'm sure you will get to know during the course of the interaction. So for a year and a half almost, they worked on, he and his friend, they worked on creating awareness about organ donation in many organizations, also, including Kolkata Police. And from there, they had this thought and they started this organization, and they're working on a very beautiful noble cause on creating awareness of organ donation. We will get to know about the facts and figures of this in a short time. I think from my perspective, it's going to be an eye-opening session for many of us. He is a businessman by profession, and he's into business of diamond jewelry, for which he's also got an award. He's got an international jewelry designing award by government of Tahiti for promoting black pearls. Moreover, this will interest many students here. He's a hardcore sports person. I would also say that something different from his profession that he's into. So he's into a couple of sports, and to name a few: table tennis, darts, cricket, soccer, and I think others too. And he's very well in that. I know him personally. I've seen the videos, and so I can say he's been doing it. So that is something very. It has inspired me, to be physically fit and also spiritually. As a yoga practitioner, he's devoted and is practicing. I would rather say that he's practicing for a few years. This is a little bit about it. More I keep open for you to interact and know from Vikram. Thank you so much, Vikram, for accepting our invitation and coming, giving your valuable time. Thanks. Well, now before I start asking questions to him, I would like to walk you all through the housekeeping. Students, if you have questions, you want to comment or share your own stories of our donation, you're free to do so. Please put them on the chat box. I would take the questions if they're related to the topic there and then. If not, we would try to cover as many as possible at the end, in the last 10-15 minutes. Well, we'll keep checking the chat box, so feel free to do so. You're all muted. If you want to speak to him, you can ask us to unmute, and we would do that to you. Lastly, I would welcome even outsiders. Mr. Baid, we have outsiders also. So we have liberal arts mass comm students, we have professors, our dean is with us, and also outsiders who are invited. So engineers and a few doctors that I know of are there. Fine. So are we good? Shall I start with the question round?
Absolutely. So obviously, I would like to thank you for such a generous introduction. I think it was very generous. And I would also like to thank the United World School of Liberal Arts and Mass Communication for having me here with you to allow me to promote this cause. It's a cause that needs everybody's attention, and what better than to address a crowd of young and intelligent people who can not only help in pledging for the cause, but can also be flag bearers. You can actually be the torch bearer to promote this cause to your near and dear ones and take it to the next level around you. I cannot be here. Nobody who's promoting the cause can be present everywhere. So what is not only important is that I create that spark within you, but I create that candle which can light so many more people. So I really thank you all for giving me this opportunity. Since we have senior authorities, I would really like to thank them, Dr. Hemant Trivedi, for allowing me to, of course, I'm sure it's with your consent that anything moves in that college. And thank you so much for having us to talk on this topic. I would like to thank Professor Preeti Das, Professor Srotaswini Bhomik, and all the other professors who've taken out their valuable time today, to join us. And here on this cause, we tend to defer. This organ donation seems a distant dream. It doesn't seem like we're going to do this tomorrow, or it doesn't seem, we always tend to put it on the back burner. I mean, I think that is the human nature, whether it is in Calcutta or Ahmedabad. We see death as a remote possibility. I'm sure we're all going to live 100 years, but I think these times, these Corona times, are the times which have actually shown us what uncertainty actually is. Everything here is uncertain. I'm sure most of you would have experienced some sort of uncertainty with your friends, relatives, environment. So things are quite uncertain, and this uncertainty is actually the primal quality of our life. It's the very base on which, the premise on which our life is hinged. So if we understand this uncertainty, I'm sure we will understand the value of organ donation and to address it in the now and not defer it and postpone it to the tomorrow.
Yes, very meaningful. Okay, before I start asking questions, I request all the students and participants to turn their video on. So would like to interact with all of us and not just speak. So please do it. I request you all. Well, so organ donation, that's the topic for the day. So can you please explain us what is organ donation? And why does it become necessary for a person to have an organ transplant?
Okay. So for students, definition is very important. So I'll first primarily define before I can explain. An organ donation is basically is a process when a person willingly, see, every word here is very important, when a person willingly chooses to have his organs gifted to another who is suffering from an end-stage organ failure for transplantation. We are looking at after his death. So that is organ donation, where the organ is being allowed to be extracted from his body when a person gives that permission legally and as a gift after he's gone to be transplanted to a person who's suffering from an end-stage organ failure. So this is basically what organ donation is, but the part B of organ donation is also very important. And that is, all of this is allowed only with the permission of the next of kin. The relative, the family member, or anybody who is in the legal possession of the body. This is more important actually. This is actually more important than the permission of the person who's donating the organ. More important than his own permission is the permission and acceptance of the family and the next of kin to allow such donation to happen. And I will explain this in the due course, why this is much more important than the wish and the will of the person who's expressing it.
Interesting. So you just mentioned it's more important for the kids and kins and their desire to. On this, I also like to understand that what is the difference between donation, organ donation and donation, live organ donation and donation after death. Are they same, or there's nothing like live donation? What do you think?
See, of course, I think before we understand what is live donation and why, we should understand why we should donate. I mean, live donation or cadaver donation, as or the donation after death, as you say. See, are we all comfortable with donation? If you're comfortable with donation, give me a thumbs up. And if you're wondering why this ribbon is behind me, because this represents hope for a green ribbon is basically for organ donation, just like the red ribbon is for AIDS and HIV promotion awareness. The green ribbon is for organ donation. All right, so I see many people have shown their thumbs up. They're all comfortable with donation. So this is actually our nature. This is the texture of human of the Indian civilization, that we are also comfortable with donation, whether it is donating food on a daily basis. Roti, Ahmedabad mein, I'm sure gai ko roti is very the done thing in our families. Whether we are doing oil donation in temples, chahe hum sona daan kar rahe hain, chahe tel daan kar rahe hain, we would like to, in so much so that even the clothes that we give, we don't like to waste it, right? We don't like to waste our clothes. We give the clothes away to somebody so that they can wear it, maybe a house help or someone, somewhere. So donation is an integral part of our lives, and we do it so effortlessly that we probably do not even realize that how much we are actually donating around us. Maybe as a family system, maybe as students, you must have at some point in your academic life donated your books away to somebody who needs it, right? So what we are actually doing is that we are donating. Now, when we talk of organ donation, why is now these are all live donation. We are all alive while we are donating. And this is not what live donation is, what Preeti is asking me. So what I'm saying is that we are doing all these donations while we are alive. But I would like to bring your awareness to something that is called an organ donation. And why is the importance of organ donation, and why do we need to draw attention to it? See, I'll give you some figures. There are 5 lakh people every year, 5 lakh people every year who are dying for a want of an organ in India alone. And this I am saying is just dying for the want of an organ. I'm not even saying that people who are not at the end stage, but who are already aware that they may require the organ at some point in time, maybe after an year, or they know their organs are being deteriorated, but they haven't reached that stage. So the 5 lakh people are the people who are absolutely on the brink of an organ failure, the end stage, and die because of lack of it, availability. If I were to show you some numbers in respect of organs specifically, for kidney, approximately 2 lakh transplants are required every year. And again, when I'm saying 2 lakh, I'm taking the number from the people who are absolutely at the brink of it, absolutely at the end stage of it. For kidneys, we have 2 lakh people who actually need kidneys to be transplanted immediately every year in India. How many are we actually doing? 8 to 10,000. Just imagine the gap. For heart, we have 20,000 heart transplants required every year. We are managing about 250 to 500. For liver transplantation, yes. For liver transplantation, we have 75 to 80,000 transplants required, and we just about make 1,500 to 2,000 transplants possible. For corneal, I mean, I'll explain to you the difference, but since at this point in time, we consider all of them the same. For corneal transplant, which we say, eye transplant, what we call in colloquial language, the requirement is 1 million people are suffering from corneal blindness. And how much are we actually about being able to draw in? About 1 lakh. And out of that also about 50 to 60% are utilizable. So we are actually looking at a figure of 50 to 60,000 when the requirement is 1 million. So such a huge demand and supply gap. I mean, we no doubt have made Herculean progress in the medical field of transplantation. And we have made a huge leap, and probably, organ transplant was the medical miracle of the last century. I'm sure it was among the top 5, medical miracles. But unfortunately, this medical miracle, it itself is not sustainable if there are no organs available. And tomorrow also, no matter how much we progress in the field of organ transplantation, if there is no donor available, right? So this is a hand in glove relationship. If there is no donor available, no matter how advanced the science, we can't make the most of it. So therefore, seeing these alarming number differences of demand and supply, it becomes imperative for us as responsible citizens, as members of responsible society, to understand this need of the society. And like I said, donation is an integral part of our habit. But to understand this and be aware, be a motivator for this cause, and motivate ourselves and pledge our own organs, it becomes an imperative responsibility that we should take up. This is what I'm trying to tell you, that why organ donation is so required. Now, when I come to organ donation, then obviously, like the first question that you come to is, what is live donation and how can we donate? And even before I move ahead, I want to tell you there are 2 kinds of donations that we can actually do. So India uses the opt-in system, right? Some countries use the opt-out system. Okay, so what is an opt-in system and what is an opt-out system? Countries like Spain, Austria, Croatia, Singapore, they are all using opt-out system, which means that anybody born in these countries is deemed to be an organ donor. If you don't want to be an organ donor, you have to opt out of that system. and which goes without saying that if you're opting out of the system, and God forbid that if that person needs it, he's not going to be on the priority list of organ availability. So in these countries, you can imagine what is the percentage of organ donation, because everybody is a donor. I'll just share some figures with you. In Spain, in 2017, they had revealed that there was 40, how you read these figures is how many people of population per million are actually donors. So in Spain, they had about 46.9% per million people donating the organ. Croatia came very close second with 38.6 per million. Singapore, so what I'm trying to say, all these opt-out countries have huge bank of organ database. Can you imagine what is the percentage per million for India? Can you make a wild guess? Maybe Preeti on behalf of everyone.
I think students could do it.
Okay, out of a million, I'm saying million. So Spain has about 46.9. How much do you think would be India?
From the facts that you've already discussed, I think we would be on a very low scale.
Which is, give me a random number, very random.
3 to 4-ish, that's what a student has mentioned.
3 to 4-ish. Okay.
26.
26.
Somebody said.
Even if we were on these numbers, we would be in a much, much better state than we are. Have you heard of a 1 in a million chance? Have you heard of 1 in a million chance? What does that mean? Is there a possibility of that happening? If I say there is a 1 in a million chance and come to take this seminar, would you consider that I'm going to come or I'm not going to come? Not going to come. Our percentage number is not even 1 in a million. Can you beat that? It's 0.86 per million are the kind of people who are contributing and being organ donors. So this then becomes so important for the next generation to take up the mantle of organ donation and spreading the awareness of the same. Now coming to live donation and the other one that you say, donation after death. What happens in live donation is that a person of course needs to be above 80. See, basically age is never a factor in organ donation. In fact, I was really surprised that when I got to know that I'm addressing a group of young people in Ahmedabad. So I wanted to brush up a little knowledge on how is organ donation in Ahmedabad. So I was really startled with the news that I found in Times of India, a newspaper of Gujarat edition, that a 2-year-old has donated has participated in organ donation in Ahmedabad. Yes, just a 2-year-old. So actually, organ donation has no age barrier. What is most important, of course, there is a guideline that you have to be above the age of 18 to be a live donor for an organ. But otherwise, the health of your organs are the most important. We have, people of the age of 70. There is abroad people. I've seen somebody above the age of 90 who are donating their organs. And their organs have been found to be pretty much in a healthy state to be used for transplantation. So for live donation, we generally, now another thing about live donation, is that in generally the countries abroad, which are very, benchmark for organ donation, they have 90% of people donating after death. As the ratio to donating live is only about 10%. So if you have the higher the percentage for donation after death, it is better. The country is supposed to be more progressive in organ donation than when your percentage is higher, for live donations. In India, it is absolutely the reverse. You have 90% people donating live, and you have 10% people donating post, leaving their bodies. What happens is that when live donation is more, it is not very organic, right? Have you all heard of a lot of, notoriety in organ donation? किसी का kidney निकाल लिया, किसी को पैसे से कुछ कर दिया. The media and movies, they do tend to promote. I saw a very dark movie by Ayushmann Khurrana, which showed how his liver was taken out and then, stitched up, and he was, I'm sure. So there are these, so all of this, there are a lot of these kind of things to live donation. So we generally don't want to talk about live donation much, and there is really not much to talk about in live donation because there is very less that you can actually donate. Whereas in donation after death, you can pretty much donate. They say that if you're donating after death, you give life to 8 people and improve the lives of more than 50 people or about 50 people. So you see, when there is a live donation happening, there is only that much you can donate. You can probably give a part of your lung, a little bit of your liver, and maybe a kidney. So that is in pair. Your lungs and kidney are in pair. You can part away a little bit with it, and maybe a little bit of liver. But you cannot give away your heart while you're still alive. I mean, that's something that you need. You cannot give away your eyes because that's something that you need. So most of the organs is something that is very life sustaining. Not give them away. Once after death, there is so much more to do with those organs, which are of no to anybody for that matter, right? So, and how do we actually say that we have 8 people directly, which is in life-saving department? Is that, let us just count the organs. We have 2 kidneys, we have 1 liver, 1 intestine, and pancreas. So these 8 things we can immediately benefit 8 people, and recipients of these 8 organs are actually, like I said, these are absolutely life-sustaining organs. So if these organs are damaged in the recipient, he's looking at a divide between life and death. And if they receive these healthy organs and transplanted to them, it's a fresh lease of life for them. Now, when I say you can improve the lives of more than 50 people, how do you do that? So we need to understand that you have 2 kinds of things that can be donated. One is the organs. These are main solid organs that I just spoke of: the liver, lungs, kidney, heart, pancreas, intestine. So these are basically the solid organs. These are in the organ category. Then you have the tissue category. What is the tissue category? The tissue category is the cornea. You have the blood vessels, heart valves, ligaments, tendons, skin, bones. So these are basically the tissues. How do you essentially differentiate between organs and tissues? Organs have a lot of blood supply. Tissues generally don't have a blood supply. Very simple difference, not complicated. So when I was exploring all this, and I was so surprised to know that eyes is something which universally anyone can donate. And why is that? Because there is no blood supply in it. And when generally one can understand that blood is the carrier of diseases. So if one of my organ is diseased, or if there is infection in one part, it is very highly likely that the infection is going to be carried on with the blood to the other organs. But since even in critical patients suffering from cancer, suffering from even eye-related problems like glaucoma, somebody may think that I have spectacles, I probably am not qualified for organ donation, or any kind of other. Almost everybody qualifies for tissue donation. Almost everybody, because these tissues do not have blood supply, and since they don't have blood supply, their health do not deteriorate. So that's this is a very beneficial thing that because of the blood supply not being there, so many tissues are actually available for transplant to improve the quality of life of the recipients.
Right.
What
is the success rate of transplant? Hello, am I audible?
Yeah, you're absolutely audible.
My question is, what is the success rate of transplantation of these organs?
See, the success rate, of course, the success rate is pretty much high. See, if you talk from the success rate, we probably started, probably the first organ donation that happened was in around 1950s, maybe 1954 or late 50s, sometime around then. And probably in India also as well, the first organ that was transplanted was kidney in around the 1960s. And the first heart transplantation somewhere in the world was in 1960s, I think in Boston. And the first heart transplant that happened in Calcutta was 2 years back. So having said that, the first transplant that happened in Boston, the life after the transplant was 18 days, right? And now now that the stage that we have reached, I remember there was this particular doctor who is in charge of heart transplantation in Calcutta in the Fortis Hospital, and he said there is this, and you can look it up on the web as well. This guy called Rupayan Roy, he got his heart transplanted, and after which, I'm just going to tell you his activities. He has been running regularly in marathons. He is not only running, he has won 2 marathons. He has, continuously he's taken up rock climbing as his new passion. And the quality of life has dramatically increased because he has parted away with the defective organ, and now he's got a fresh organ. Now, coming back to, what is the success rate of organ transplantation? For the first year, the success rate of organ transplantation is almost 99%. So the first year, there is hardly any, the survival rate is very high. If there is the kidney is being transplanted, the success rate is, with heart particularly, the procedure of heart transplantation is a little complicated, right? Because it's a very complicated where you're transplanting one heart in a person. But apart from that, once that transplantation is done, it's pretty much very easy just to lead a little bit of disciplined life and a little bit of medicines that probably are given, and the body is completely sorted. Maybe with the kidney and liver, what happens is that because there is there is blood flow in this, the immune related disorders sometimes crop up, but latest immunosuppressants and latest surgical procedures have been done so well that hardly there is any failure in transplantation at all. And as far as corneal transplantation eye transplantation is concerned, the success rate is almost 95% for 5 years. And with now the further advancement in the technology with the component transplantation, they are looking at increasing it to 10 years. So success rate is very high in transplantation in today's modern science, medical science.
Yeah, that sounds really nice.
Yes.
Well, I would like to take a question incredible. Here. A student is written in personal. So if I have an aged person in the house, and if the family member passes away at home, so do we have to take him to the hospital for this donation, or what's the procedure? I mean,
so Preeti, we need to understand when I talk about, we have spoken of 2 kinds of donations that is possible in our body, which is organ donation and tissue donation, right? Now, I would like to introduce you to a concept of 2 kinds of death. 2 kinds of death. I'm again talking in terms of medical this thing. There are 2 kinds of death. One is called the cadaver death or the brain death. Brain death. And the other is the cardiac death. Okay. Now, generally what we see when a person, first let us understand what is a cardiac death and what is a brain death. In the case of cardiac death, the heart stops, the heart dies first. I'll try and put it in the most simple language possible. The heart dies first. Okay. The minute the heart dies, what is the role of the heart? It keeps pumping the blood to all the organs. That is the role of the heart. So the minute the heart dies, the blood is stopped, the pumping of the blood is stopped, and the blood stops going to the various organs very quickly. So in a cardiac death, it is not possible to extract the organs, the solid organs. Why? Because by the time you will extract the organs will have been damaged and spoiled because of lack of blood supply to them. Right? Now, abroad in certain countries, time is really of an essence when you're talking of organ donation. Okay. Because every organ has a particular point of time that it can, be kept to preserve before it spoils. Time is really of an essence. So generally, when there is a death at house, it is generally a cardiac death. When a cardiac death is happening, then for you to, now if a cardiac, okay, first let me complete with the 2 kinds of death. So in the cardiac death, the blood supply, and therefore there is only that much that you can extract from the body. What happens in brain death? In brain death, what happens is that there is a brain stem. Okay, brain stem function of the brain dies. How do you detect it? It is detected in a controlled environment. When the person is in an ICU, when the person is on a ventilator with life support system, what does the ventilator do? Ventilator is artificially supporting the heart to pump the blood and keep the body alive, right? Are we clear on that? Okay, if you don't understand, if you want me to do anything, please let me know, change my delivery or give more examples. You can just, whatever, with some sign, you can do that. So in brain death, what happens in an ICU, when the doctor realizes that the person has gone through brain death, he goes and tells the family that, listen, the brain death has happened, and would you like to donate the organs? In such a case, a lot of tests are done. So I will explain it right away so that we don't come back to here again. What happens is that once the doctor feels that a brain death needs to be established, few tests are done twice at an interval of 6 hours. One is the apnea test and certain other tests, which are a very standardized way of testing brain death. Okay, and brain death is let me tell you, very legal in India and all over the world. So once a brain death has been established, which means it is an irreversible procedure. A person cannot come back. So once the brain death has been established, which means the brain stem has been spoiled. Brain stem is responsible for the breathing and many other functions in the body. Once the brain stem has died, then the breathing that the person can be seen taking on ventilator is through the help of ventilator. So how do they check? They remove the life support and they check, is it possible for the person to take breathing on his own? And other apnea test and other tests. Once this test indicates twice at a gap of 6 hours by a specialized team that no, this person, the brain stem has completely been damaged irreversibly, and there is no way in which the person can be revived on a brain level, then it is established that the person is brain dead and the organs can now start extracting. Because the ventilator is on, the life support system is on, the blood is still being flown, drawn to other organs. Therefore, in a controlled environment, once the brain death has been declared, solid organs like heart, liver, lungs, kidney, intestine, pancreas, these can be extracted. Now, let's say.
I have a question.
Yeah, sure. Please, Sriti.
But then how family members can get to know that, if it's a brain death or not?
Yeah, so what
if
actually
the person
happens
is not in hospital?
Yeah, so one, we have to understand that brain death declaration can only be done in the hospital, right? Because what happens is brain has died, but the cardiac is still pumping the blood. What happens at home is that cardiac arrest stops the pumping of blood, and brain death anyways cannot be declared in a home environment. But let's say if the person goes through a heart attack and is taken to the hospital, put on life support system, and for some reason there is brain death. Okay, brain death generally happens with some impact or injury in the head through some road accident or some hemorrhage in the brain, which leads to the brain stem being damaged and a brain death being declared. Now, when this person reaches, the ICU, this person who's suffered from cardiac arrest, and for some reason brain death can be declared, then so many organs and tissues can be extracted. But typically in a home environment, we cannot have solid organ extraction. What can be donated at home is basically the tissues. So you can have the eyes, the cornea, the skin, heart valves, blood vessels. In South India, we all know that South India is very advanced. They have had face transplantation, they've had hand transplant. So all the tissues can be extracted at home, but the organs cannot be extracted at home.
At home.
Sorry, this was your previous question. What was your next question?
I mean, the next question I have is, after the organs are retrieved.
No, you had, sorry, I just remembered. You had asked me, how will the family be informed? How will they know about the brain death and all of that?
Right. Unko kaise pata chalega that if it's a brain death?
So now, because there is more awareness of organ donation in India, and slowly, with these initiatives like these, even on the medical front, there is a shortage of infrastructure and doctors. So even the government is trying to increase the infrastructure, increase the awareness of people who, diagnose brain death, the people who do this are called intensivists. Okay, this is a specialized job of declaring a brain death is done by a specialized person who's called intensivist. Now it is then becomes the duty of an intensivist who is there, who's supposed to be there in every hospital, right, to detect brain death and to declare brain death. And once the brain death has been declared, they go to the family, not declared as in officially, but once clinically he feels that, you know, there is brain death happening, has happened in this particular patient who's on ventilator and support system, he goes out to the family, and he goes out to this family and he speaks to them that, listen, brain death has happened, would you like to donate? And you know, in all cases, obviously they are going through a lot, the family is already going through a lot, so sometimes it becomes a solace for the family to be able to see that the organ of their loved one who's deceased is can be, you know, actually used and can stay on to live in somebody else's body. It can actually become a point of solace for that family. And this grief counseling is done by these doctors. And once the family decides that, okay, fine, we are willing to donate, what these doctors do is that the doctors then go and properly, methodically, in a standardized way, check if the brain death has happened. And if the brain death has happened, they come back and speak to the family and confirm brain death to the family. And then they ask which organs, you know, would they like to donate. And then once the family gives them that, you know, these are their options and they choose their options, then the doctor checks them if it is medically fit, if these organs can be taken, if there is no medical history or any reason for which they can, you know, be rejected, in which most cases it is always accepted. So, and then these organs are then extracted and put to use. I hope I'm clear. Am I clear?
Yeah, yeah.
Super.
I think a thumbs up, guys, if you are you getting. It seems it's a nodding their head. So yeah.
Yeah.
Acha, how can I, as a person, make sure that my loved ones who are in need gets the organ?
All right. Firstly, I hope nobody's loved one needs one. Firstly, and if one requires, there are, you know, there is NATO, which is National Organ, Tissue and Transplant Organization. You have a.
You can note this down, guys.
It's pretty much everything is there on the web. Okay, National NATO, NOTTO. So that is National Organ and Tissue Transplant Organization. You have the regional, which is ROTO, ROTTO, which is Regional Organ and Tissue Transplant Organization. And you have the SOTO, which is State Organ and Tissue Transplant Organization. So these are three government bodies which are actually, you know, looking at the waiting lists. So once, you know, it is not, you know, Preeti, it's not like that, but let's say today there is somebody in a family who needs a particular organ, and I tell the doctor, listen, you know, this person iska aap de dijiye. Waise nahi hota hai. There is a proper waiting list. So I cannot decide where my loved one's organ is going to go and get transplanted. I can only donate the organs. Once the organs are donated, it then becomes the property of the state. And then these legal bodies, which is the NATO, ROTO, and SOTO, weird abbreviations, but if you you know, expand them, they become more meaningful. You know, then these organizations take charge of making sure that these organs are you know, going to the recipients. And how are the recipients decided? Of course, like I said, there is a waiting list. Okay. Now, waiting list is, of course, by who comes first come first serve basis. Whoever is on top of the waiting list is first ready to take the organ. But it is also decided by a match. Now, I may be on the top of the list to receive a kidney, but the kidney that has been immediately been available, if it doesn't match with me, because there are a lot of you know, body immuno compatibility that needs to be checked. And once that compatibility is matched, only then the organ can be sent for transplantation to that respective person. And the best part is that because we have a national body and regional and state, you know, in fact, a few days back, we had, you know, an organ flying from Calcutta to Hyderabad, Bangalore, say, an organ flying into Calcutta. So it's a pretty much a national level network, and you never know where the organ may go. It may just go to another state. So coming back to your question, no, we cannot decide who is going to be the recipient of the organ that we have decided to, you know, donate. That is the property of the
Acha.
state, and there is a proper system, there is a proper waiting list, which is being handled by the by these organizations along with the medical fraternity, and they decide who is going to be the recipient of these organs.
Right. So then I have a question here.
Yes,
That
please.
if I mean we have donated organs of a family member, how can I be sure if that organ is utilized or not?
Okay.
I
So
understand
what seems to
identity
be
disclose नहीं होगा, लेकिन
हाँ,
किसी को मिला भी है कि नहीं, मुझे कैसे हमें कैसे पता चलेगा, या पता भी चलेगा या नहीं? That's the question.
so if any organ, see, we have to trust the state bodies. See, there is a huge network of legal organizations that is taking care of this. The whole medical fraternity, there is there is a proper system. There is a proper SOP that is followed when an organ is being, donated. There is a medical team, the hospitals, the transplant coordinators, the, this Roto Soto and Noto, they all, jump in. And see, you have to understand that these organs are not something, I said time is of essence, right? So let's say if my kidneys are to be taken out today, there is no time for those kidneys to be fooled around with. There is a waiting list. There is an organization and medical team that is looking into it. And I've told you what is the difference in demand and supply, right? So once you can be absolutely sure that an organ that has been donated is 110% being put to good use, either is being transplanted to somebody or is being taken care in research and development. But there is no way in hell that an organ that has been transplanted is just going waste. It's absolutely not possible.
Okay. Did
But
you or
disclosure, but also, since you say this, I must also tell you that it is pretty much illegal for the doctors to disclose who the organ is going to. So that is also
Right.
one reason that, you're trying to find out would also be delving into an illegal zone, that you're not allowed to know who is the recipient of the organ. And there is a very interesting story, which one of the doctors was telling us, that, how this initially probably they were telling, who is the recipient and who is the donor in all good faith. But it so happened in the city of Mexico that once a particular organ was transplanted to another person, and the family of the donor then went to the family of the recipient, or the recipient himself or herself, and started asking for money. That, my the organ from my loved one has now gone to you, and you must, So to avoid all of those complications, it is always better that, the person who's receiving it and the person giving it are anonymous.
right?
So that there is no moral obligation, there is no sense of obligation on the recipient also, that, he needs to, there's a natural feeling of a little bit of obligation. So that has also been excluded from the equation.
Right, right. So on this note, I have a personal question.
Please.
Does any family member of yours, I mean, have you seen this or the procedure of donation? I mean, in the sense yourself, have you been part of any? Your family
Yes, so
member
actually this whole journey of organ donation has actually started from somebody in my own family, my own grandmother, right from when I was child, around say 14, 15 years, as far as I can remember. She always spoke of eye donation, right? We were not, as individuals, as families, we are not really aware of organ donation so much, but eye donation and kidney donation, we have all of at some point in time, maybe because of media, maybe because of movies. So she would also, that after I leave my body, please make sure that my eyes are. So unfortunately, she suddenly passed away a few years back, and then we were reminded of the wish. And the minute we were reminded of the wish, we were not aware of what to do, because suddenly you do not have any idea. So you need iBank's number and some calls. I managed to gather some information of an iBank, which actually came to my house. She had, they came to and the organ was just 20 minutes. Can you imagine? There is no there was disfigurement. There is no, tying of the eyes or covering, make sure that, it doesn't look deformed. It was so simple that once they were gone, it was even difficult to say that she had donated her eyes. It's so simple as a procedure. And I'm so happy when I look in hindsight that, we were able to do it and, fulfill a wish. But like I always say, this is this is one example that no matter how much we are willing to pledge our organs, no that when the time comes, we will not be here to fulfill that wish. We will be gone, right? And what will remain behind is basically a lifeless body, is just a baggage. Just like we have clothes, we open it. We are not our clothes. We change clothes every day. In a larger paradigm, in a bigger picture, the body is our clothes. We will move on to take another pair of clothes somewhere else, but this pair of clothes we need to donate. And because we will not be there, it is very important, it is very imperative that we speak to our family members who will honor our last wish. Like I honored for my grandmother, and I was only reminded because she made it a point to talk to me every year about it, right from when I was a child. She had made these small notes. I don't want to delve into the details, but she made these small notes with some pearls and all of that written for my eyes and all of that. So, what is important is that you do some exercise on a continuous basis. Like, for example, this one particular doctor that we have in Calcutta, you know what he does? He says, I don't pledge my organs. What I have done is every birthday, when I'm cutting my cake, I make sure I remind my family that when I'm gone, if my next birthday does not come, please make sure that when you have the legal possession of my body, you honor my last wish that all my organs are donated as much as possible at that point in time. And that's it. So as pledgers, we can only make a wish. When you put a pledge on a paper, right? Let's say if I ask you to, Divyajit Singh. Yes. Sorry, I am a little far and I have these plus powers. So Divyajit Singh. So if I ask you to pledge your organ today, right? Or if I ask Aditi Singhal, or if I ask Zeba Sheikh, these are the names right in front of me. So I've just randomly chosen these names. If I ask you to pledge these organs, then what happens is that by pledging these organs, or let's say if I have pledged these organs, I am only a warrior to the cause. That is all. It means nothing more than that. When I am going to move out of my body, the decision makers are going to be my family, my next kin. They will be the decision maker. I am not the decision maker. I am writing a pledge form. Why? So that we can sit down here today with my family and we can discuss the possibility of my organ donation, expression of my wish, which happens with gathering of a lot of information, of knowing about procedures, like you correctly asked, how should we go about it, of collecting iBank details, assimilating certain information and coming to a point of decision that yes, I have decided a lot of introspection and interrogation of a lot of information that I wish to donate my organs. So when you pledge, you decide that in spirit.
Right.
And you become a flag bearer to the cause, because then you will get a donor card and you can show that donor card, see, I'm an organ donor. And if somebody says that, Preeti is an organ donor and she has donated or pledged her organs, so that all of you know, she has already pledged all her organs with our organization. So if she is, let's say, someone who's pledged her organs, I'm sure she's in a key position to motivate and encourage so many students there to do the same. So and we are all influencers in our own lives, right? I'm sure everybody is an influencer. Maybe your sister is influenced by you, your parents are influenced by you, your friends are influenced by you. So you are an influencer in your own right. So when you do this organ donation and carry an organ donation pledge card, then you influence that many more people and raise awareness about this issue. So that is all that is there about pledging your organs. When the time comes, it is upon the family to take the decision. And here I may say that, if the family decides to go against my wishes, it's completely their right. If my family decides to, if I say, no, I don't want to donate my organs, and my family then thinks it is best, maybe, 50 years from now or 100 years from now, whenever that happens, and my family thinks, no, it's the right thing to do now, my wish of not donating doesn't hold. So the decision to donate or not donate the organs lies with the family. So please, anybody who decides to pledge their organs, make it a point to speak to your family on a continuous basis, because that is what will be able to convert this wish of yours. The family, again, like I said, can only decide, but it is actually the prerogative of the doctors who then look at the organs and decide whether these organs can be extracted, harvested, and then transplanted. It is not even then complete decision of the family. But this is a beautiful coordination between the person who's pledging, his family, and the doctors.
Right. Yes. So
And I really hope that, and I, sorry for cutting you short, and I really hope that after this talk, we at least take the first step of, sowing the seed of pledging our organs. And
Right.
it just means that what we have been, postponing for years, that we will see when the time comes, we are bringing it from the back burner to the front burner. We are addressing the issue and we are making up our minds to it. That's all that is there to it. Otherwise, a pledge form is just a piece of paper. That's all.
Yeah, absolutely. I also feel that not only family, but also friends and people with whom we live in and out. We also should be made aware that I have pledged and I want to donate. I mean, anyone who we are surrounded with should be aware of our wish, right?
Absolutely. And that is, like I said, when the best thing is to not give a fish, but to teach fishing, right? So I just don't want to give you a pledge form. I want you to be the warriors. I want you to be, the flag bearers of spreading awareness in your environment. And your environment could just mean 2 friends, to 20 in an organization, to whatever your reach is. And that is then you become an educated, modern, young generation who can take charge of this society and show the path, way ahead to the society. And can you imagine, I mean, as I talk, I'm just imagining what if in the news tomorrow is flashed that, United World School of Liberal Arts and Mass Communication, how many participants do we have? 100 people pledge their organs. It's a new record, And Ahmedabad, I must tell you, I have some clippings I'll show you. They are just coming up, they just last year they have decided that they have to up the, hold this systems of organ donation. And Maharashtra, Kerala, and Tamil Nadu, they lead in India. They're among the top 3. And Gujarat, in that particular, article that I saw, is now taking stance to be a front leader. And what best if this particular schools comes in news tomorrow that 100 people, it's a century, that they have all decided to pledge their organs. It will be a big news. And I'm sure you guys will motivate so many other colleges, and your college will be seen in another light. I'm sure of that.
Right. So, I mean, the last question, there are questions from students which we will take, but a last question before that. So after listening to the facts and figure from you,
yes,
if people are, if the students want to donate, or if, for example, we all want to donate, what should we do next? I mean, how can we do it?
See, like I said, is really nothing. I mean, at this point in time, nobody can really donate their organs or tissues for that matter. Of course, it can be done. Live donations are possible, but primarily what we are talking for is not for now. It is for after we are gone, right? We are not our bodies. We are really not our bodies. And once we are gone, this body is just going to stay back. So this donation that we are asking you to do is that once you have a completely fulfilling life, full of fun, full of the dreams, being fulfilled, whatever you want, the careers that you want to achieve, the highs that you want to reach, when all of that has been done, and once your 100 years is done and you are gone, then these remaining organs become the fruit of life, a fruit of gift for somebody who needs it, only after you don't need it. And at this point in time, you have to do nothing. Just enjoy your organs, just enjoy your tissues, and enjoy wherever you are. At the most, what you can do is you can fill in a pledge form which expresses your wish. If today you decide that you want to pledge your organs, all you have to do is fill in a pledge form, and I will be giving you a link. You can just pledge your organs on that link with our organization, and that is it, pretty much it. What then really needs to be done is continuously talking to your family about it, because that is where the real the worth of the word is.
Absolutely.
When you talk to
I have a participant here,
yes,
Vimal Jain, who is who's already donated and has just shared the card here with me. So
Oh, super.
there's a card sort of thing. Yeah, yeah. And also somebody who's donated not just, I mean, pledged for not just organs but the entire body.
Right.
Yeah, the people here who've done that. On
Sorry,
this
please
note,
tell me. Please come again.
I'm saying a participant has done. He said that has pledged the entire body, not only
Oh,
organs.
super. Fantastic.
And his entire family is done. That's wonderful.
Who is? Can I have the
There
name
are-
of this person? Who is he?
So Deepak Makwana is his name,
Okay, Deepak Makwa.
and Vimal Jain.
Super.
And Vimal
Oh,
Jain.
fantastic. Fantastic.
Yes. Students have questions, and I would now take them from the chat box.
Sure.
Okay, so Nandish has asked, can we not make a legal obligation or a will declaring my organs are to be donated?
Unfortunately, you cannot, because like I said, once I'm gone, my body, I'm already gone, right? And my body is the possession, is the the property of the family. That is how the legal system sees it, that the body is the property. And also it's a very nice question that you are asking with a very honest intention. But also, like, when I'm pledging my organs now, like I said, my 50 years, 100 years, when the need is going to come, I am not aware. And that point in time, what is going to be the condition of my organs? There is really nothing that can stop someone from pledging the organs. No matter what disease I'm sitting on at the moment, I can still pledge my organs. But whether the organs can be harvested and transplanted, that depends at the point in time when it is needs to be extracted on medical investigation. As far as the consent of the parents and their permission is concerned, definitely they are in the legal possession of the body. So the best thing is to continue keep speaking to your family so that they are convinced. And in Indian system, in Indian culture, the last wish is always, even for prisoners, even for by the law, the last wish is always honored. So if that is the last wish, I'm sure no matter who, the family will always honor it.
Right. Okay, we're almost around 1. I will just take a few questions before we wind up.
Yes,
Preet has asked, generally every organ has limited time to transfer from one person to another. Is it possible to be that quick?
So, like I again said, it's a very good question. The quickness is very difficult when there is a cardiac death, because then the blood supply is almost lost with, say, within 20 minutes. So, once the hospital is informed that there has been a cardiac death at home, everything needs to come together in, let's say, 20 minutes time, which is not possible in a country like India, primarily because of distances, because of traffics, because of the medical systems. At 20 minutes, the whole specialized team coming together, whether it is day or whether it is night, is extremely difficult in a country like India. But in a country like maybe Spain, even Spain in 2017 was just able to do about 99 such extractions with cardiac death, only 99, which means it is a highly specialized job, which needs to be done almost in a snap, right? So with India, it is not possible. And again, the infrastructure is not so developed in remote places. So in India, it is, I would say, not possible with cardiac death. But what happens in brain death is that the brain stem function has died, right? But the heart is still on, and it's a very controlled environment. So the doctors then can decide that how to continue the pumping of blood with the ventilator and keeping the organs safe. But since you've asked me this question, there are some statistics that liver can, be preserved for about 10 to 12 hours. So after it is extracted, one can preserve the liver for about 10 to 12 hours. The pancreas can stay for about 4 to 6 hours. The intestines can stay for approximately 8 hours, and the kidneys can actually stay for about 20 to 24 hours before it is transplanted. Of course, it needs special techniques and how you preserve the organs and all of that. And there is a special preserving specialist who just looks at preserving the organs once it is taken out. But yes, time is definitely of an essence, and one needs to work fast. But in brain death, which happens because of any injury to the head or brain hemorrhage, and in ICU, in a controlled environment, it is possible to prolong that period of time and extract as much as possible.
Right.
And also, I must tell you, for anybody who's thinking that in brain death is not the same as coma.
Okay.
In coma, what happens? There is no consciousness, but all the vital functions of the brain is there, right? All the vital functions of the brain of the body is absolutely there. It is just that the person is unconscious. But what happens in brain stem death is that there is no brain function. Brain stem means that you cannot take a breath on your own. So we say expiring. The person has expired, right? Where does that term come from? That the person expired his last breath and has not inspired after that. So that is expired. So once the person, human, has expired, has taken the last breath, he cannot take in the breath again by his own means. That is brainstem damage, which is not the same as coma. Coma, the person is breathing on his own. The the whole subconscious system is moving on its own.
Right.
So the coma and vegetative state is very different from that of brain death. A brain death is a certain death decided by a team of doctors on international standardizations, and there is absolutely no chance. And if brain death is left and organs are not taken out, say in a period of 8 hours, 10 hours, or 24 hours, the cardiac death is bound to happen.
Okay.
And that the body is just working and functioning on these life support system.
Fine. Sandhya has a question, but I think that you already covered. How long can a person after death be dead and still donate organs? How long? So I think आपने बताया वो.
So again, like I said, कि आप अगर cardiac death है, घर पे death है, तो आप कर ही नहीं सकते हो. खाली tissues दे सकते हो. Like you can give skin, cornea, blood vessels, heart valves. The tissues can be given in a cardiac death. But अगर आपका brain death है, brain death is determined only in an ICU, which is a controlled environment, so you get that much more time. And this whole coordination also, like everybody is asking about in how much time. I must also say that what actually happens is once the organs are taken out, and like I told you, for every organ there is a respective time. So it is a beautiful coordination between the hospital authorities, the organ coordinator who is coordinating with the NATO, for where the organ needs to go, where is the match with all the medical reports, and also the police for that matter. If an organ, let's say, can last only 5 hours, and if it has to be got from Ahmedabad to Calcutta, so sometimes even, emergency helicopters, emergency flying is done, where the organ is being, transported to that particular city, and the police makes sure, which is actually called the green corridor. Have you heard of the green corridor? All the signals from the airport to the hospital are done green, so that the organ does not need to stop even for a second anywhere. So that is the priority that, organ transplantation is, and, lease of life is given because of the time that is so essential here.
Sanket is saying yes, the movie Traffic.
Okay, I've not seen it, but I'm sure. But movies and these serials, having said that, show very weird kind of things. I've heard of this serial that is, coming on Netflix or Amazon Prime, where the person who's pledging his organs is being killed or something like that. ऐसा कुछ है? किसी ने देखा है? I'm glad you've not seen it. If you haven't, then I won't speak of it.
Fine. Sandhya has asked another question. Then
I have some video, some media to share with you when I.
Okay. Fine. Can a transplanted organ be reused and transplanted into a new patient after a person dies?
Well, that's the first question I've ever been asked, because one transplantation I know of. The second transplantation, I'm not sure. I don't know. I mean, of course, see, medically, everything is possible. It all depends on the condition of the heart. So, for example, if a heart has been transplanted, I'm not a heart surgeon to be able to say that, the nerves have been cut in a particular way and they cannot be recut or rejoined. But all I know that if the organ is healthy enough, the condition of the organ at the point in time of extraction is the most important. There are no, benchmark answers that yes, something can be done and no, something cannot be done. At the point of extraction, if it is medically possible, there is nothing that will stop the doctor from extracting it. That is all that I can say.
Okay.
But I think that is taking recycling to the another level, where you are recycling the recycled organ. Fantastic.
Kanishk has asked this. What if Einstein's brain is again transplanted to some as we see biotech going on next level, is that possible to generate the brain of dead to someone else?
Is it possible to generate? Yeah, ask me this question.
Sorry, should I repeat?
Yes, please.
Okay. What if Einstein brain is again transplanted to somebody as we see biotech going on next level? Is that possible to generate the brain of a dead to someone else?
Okay. See, brain transplantation, the doctors in India haven't spoken to me about. They have not trained me on brain transplantation yet. I'll try and bring in other knowledge from other areas that's possible, right? When you say biotech, I'm sure you're talking of genetics, right? Where are you just, I mean, I want to understand the agenda of the question. Are you saying that if the brain of the Einstein is transplanted to somebody else, can we have a brain as efficient as Einstein? Are you asking that? Because only then the question of talking of Einstein brains comes in. Because otherwise you could even ask for my brains. If any brain can be transplanted, any brain can be transplanted. I'm not sure. I'm not sure if brain can be transplanted at all. In fact, I'm sure it cannot be transplanted as of now. Brains are not organs that can be transplanted. A. Now coming to your very interesting question, can Einstein's brain be transplanted hypothetically and made to be as efficient as it was on his body? Am I right, Preeti, if that is the interpretation to the question?
I feel so, yes, that's what.
Yes. So then what I'm saying is that genetics is a bygone science, you know. What is genetics? Genetics is basically your cellular memory in the genes. So what you are asking is that the genetic memory, the cellular memory of Einstein be again triggered to work in somebody else's body. No, it cannot happen like that because the new science is epigenetics. Epigenetics is rising. Epi means above. We are now in the world of epigenetics. Epigenetics is that you don't have to be a slave to your genetics. Of course, it is said in a positive way that if there is any negative cellular memory, there are ways to not make sure that it is never triggered or activated in your space. Having said that, again, whatever is positive also in Einstein's brain, you know, it is just a antenna that is, receiving signals from somewhere else. If that antenna is placed in my body, I'm not sure if it will receive the same signals.
Right. Yeah. Okay, we have someone from abroad here, Shalini. She's asked, she would like to know the rules for NRIs of organ donation.
See, there is no specific rule for an NRI. What you need to see, where do you qualify for an organ donation? If you qualify as an Indian, you are pledging your organs in India. And at the point of time of extraction, you are in India, the rules of India will apply to you. If the organs are being, see, like I said, pledging means nothing. If you're pledging in India, the organs can be extracted well in America. And when you are in America, when you are in Rome, you do as the Romans do. So if I am in America when my organs are being extracted, then it will happen by the rules and regulations of that land. And coming back to the rules and regulation, like I said, there are opt-in methods. We follow the opt-in. So you have to opt in to become an organ donor. There are some places which are opt-out. And the law of the land is really different because the medical advances are different. The infrastructure is different. So the protocols are different. So what I would just like to answer that question in a very simple way is that the land where the point of extraction is happening is more important than any other rule that you may follow, where you are pledging and where you are deciding.
Okay.
Yeah.
Another student, Harisha, I think this makes the answer clear. I mean, another student, Harisha, has asked that she wants to.
Sorry, I'm a little.
Sorry.
There's a little bit of disturbance. Is it on my front? I'm not sure. Can you guys hear me?
You're audible, yes.
Okay, there is a bit of disturbance. Can you just give me? Yes, please tell me.
So I think you answered this question, but I will read it. So Harisha says, I do want to donate my organs when I die. I've planned it since really long for the benefits of others. I wanted to ask.
Sorry, I'm not being able to understand. There is some network issue.
Students, am I audible?
Just give me 1 second. I'll try and sort it out. Give me a
wire. Yeah.
Charging wire. Just give me 1 second, please.
Won't take much of your time. I know it's been long, it's been past 1. Just bear with us for 5 more minutes and we should be done.
I try to join in again.
You may, yeah. We'll wait. Guys, on this note, I would also like to share that I'll put the pledge form on the group, here also, or maybe on our classroom groups. So if anyone is willing, please fill the form, for your own self. And as Vikram mentioned, it's important to talk about your wish. That's more important, I think. Okay. Are you with us, Vikram?
I think Vikram sir is disconnected and is.
Okay. Yeah, I would like to say to every yeah. So okay. There are a few interesting questions, some about Israeli scientists and all. I'll take when Sir rejoins. Till then, let me thank everybody. Of course, students of USLM, all the professors, Hemant sir, Preeti ma'am, Shrutishwini ma'am, and everyone else from outside. My guests, special guests who have come.
Okay, it's clear now. I'm so sorry.
That's okay.
So sorry. Now it's clear. I don't know where the problem was my front or where, but now it's clear. We can take questions now. I'm so sorry about this.
Fine. So Divyajit Singh has asked, Israeli scientists created 3D printed heart, fully functioned. Okay. So can that 3D printed heart be transplanted?
Who's asked this question?
Divyajit Singh.
Divyajit, like I said, technology, this is all about advancement in the medical science, right? And medical science advancement, more than just the brains and knowledge to do it, there are a lot of equipments required. If they have printed a heart, a 3D printed a heart, I'm sure we have not seen journals, we have not heard about a 3D, because then you could print everything. It is not possible in my knowledge to do a 3D printing of the heart. It may still be on experimental stage, on research stage, but it has not reached the commercial tables where a 3D printed heart can be installed in somebody's body. It is not possible till now. Abhi tak to nahi ho sakta ye.
Okay. Shikha has asked this: how to donate tissues? How much time it needs to extract after death?
So tissues, like I said, of course, right, of course. So what happens is, like, for example, bones, right? They have a long point, they have a good amount of time available for them to be extracted. For eyes, for example, there is about 6 hours available before they can be extracted. So one must not really wait for the 6th hour, but as early as possible. And then even if you call up the eye bank and tell them that the extraction is required, and they will tell you to put a moist cotton or something that they will tell you that will prolong the life, the quality of that organ for a little more while. But for tissues, it's not a problem, depending again what you're doing. See, in any which case, when you're talking of somebody passing away, we do not cremate, we don't keep the body for a few days or a week long at home, any which ways, right? So anyways, what we are talking of is, we are talking of within a day. So tissues give you enough time that, if somebody gets to know that, if my family gets to know that I have left my body, then they can say within 15 minutes, 20 minutes, 1 hour, 15 minutes, call up the eye bank, and they will, because they are specialized, they know that they need to come in fast. They will come, say, within 2-3 hours, and they will just extract in 15-20 minutes, and that's about it. And what is very important to know today in organ donation is, like, I say from my own personal experience, that there is no need to be scared, because there is no disfigurement. Because eyes is something, like I said, these days they don't take out the eyeball completely. The success rate of people donating was very less earlier, especially for eyes as well, because earlier the whole eyeball would have been taken out and there was a little bit of disfigurement, so people would be very paranoid about seeing their loved one like that. But once this corneal transplantation has been taking place, corneal, they take out something as thin as a contact lens. Have you seen contact lenses? So what
Yeah.
they take out is something as thin as the contact lens, you know, and then there are further components to these contact lenses that they take out. There is, you know, the stem cell, there is a layer which is taking care of the transparency. There is a layer which is taking care of the, you know, clarity. So all these, so now the transplantation is being done either component wise or completely. So the donor is actually, you will not even know that something has been taken out. I want everybody to be very clear that, you know, there is absolutely no disfigurement, no matter a solid organ is being taken out or a tissue is being taken out. If a skin, like say, if somebody goes for skin donation, skin is not taken out from areas which is visible. Skin is taken out from maybe back of the thighs, because that's how the body is lying. So back of the thighs, maybe inner thighs, or areas which is not visible.
Right.
So extraction pretty much for tissues, there is ample time. You don't need to really rush as much as you need to rush for the organs, and it can be done at the convenience of one's home very easily without any disfigurement. That's it. Yeah.
Fine, thank you. I think we've covered all the questions. If anyone still has a question, may write it. Hemant sir is with us. Vikram, I'd like to mention,
Sure.
you already know, but dean of our school.
Of
Sir,
course.
we would like to hear you, some words. Kanishk, may I request you to unmute, sir? And sir, can we hear you?
Just a second. If I can.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, am I now audible?
Yes, sir, you are.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, please look
Yes, sir.
on my video. I am at home. Well, it has been a very interesting listening. I was aware of organ donations, and I've had friends, relatives who have donated, and I have actually observed eye donation happening right in front of my eyes. You know, when the doctors came, they extracted the eyes, and they kind of filled the eyeballs, sockets, and closed the eyes. I mean, after the process was done, there was no way anybody would know that the eyeballs have been removed. This was before a few years. So I have a very, very personal experience of organ donations like this. But this was a very, very elaborate understanding in terms of the, first of all, the two types of death. Very few people actually understand the cardiac death and the brain death kind of death, right? Generally, we have an understanding कि हाँ पहले heart fail हो जाता है, कभी brain काम करना बंद कर देता है. But actually, technically, what are the aspects in the medical terminology? It was not known to even me. So, Vikram, it has been very nice listening to you and very informative. I'm sure most of my students are going to be motivated, and I have just suggested that we should collect all the pledge forms, and we can request the Vice Chancellor to announce, as Vikram you suggested, we can actually talk about it. We can tell people that here, the school, USLM as we call it, has decided to, that the students and faculty of the school have decided to pledge their organs. I think this is definitely very, very positive kind of an idea, and we should try and do that, right? So thank you again, Vikram, for a very, very elaborate and knowledgeable delivery from your side. It was very nice listening to you. And Prithviraj, thank you so much for coordinating and comparing it. Thank you. Thank you all.
Thank you so much, Dr. Hemant. Coming from you, I'm sure it'll give a lot of confidence to all the students. And your word, definitely they take your word to mine, and I'm sure now they will be really motivated to, fill up the pledge forms, which I've just given the link in the chat box for anybody who wishes to fill in the pledge form there. Can absolutely take it from there.
And students, wait, we will require a count of students who have filled in, faculties and students. So hang on. Wait for my instructions and then fill the form. And Vikram, on this note, I'd like to say that we will surely keep you posted on how many students have filled. I think you might get to know it from your end.
So
but
what we can
would
also
let
do,
you-
Preeti, yeah, of course, that will be great. You could also keep, you could also tell me the numbers, and this particular form that I've given you, I will also get to know. So I can also share that information with you.
So I have received the
that
link.
will be good.
Sorry to interrupt. I have
Sorry?
received. I have received the link, and I will be sharing to Preeti Nakhad ma'am, Vikram sir, and we will be sharing numbers with you.
That'll be great.
Fine.
That'll be great.
So we would also like to do that. I mean, get the total number of people who have pledged their organs. Yeah, Preeti Das ma'am, are you with us? Okay.
She is not, ma'am.
Okay, fine. On this note, I would like to once again thank, of course, the speaker of the day, but I think a little more importantly, students here who, come listen. I was constantly checking everyone, and I was able to see that everyone was very attentive and listening. I hope you liked it, and thanks for taking out your time, students. Not only students, but all other listeners too, for coming to this and creating more awareness, as Sir mentioned. Also, of course, it was the speaker of the day. As Hemant sir mentioned, Vikram, it was highly informative. There were certain things that probably many of us didn't know, that we got to know from you. And
Thank you, Preeti. Thank you so much.
one more request. Once things get back to normal, we would like to have, like, as Vikram is a clinical hypnotherapist and also sound healer, we would like you to on campus with us for our students, for a webinar, for a workshop, or whatever suits us and you. I mean,
The pleasure will be all
mutually
mine. Really, thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you
Thanks
so much,
for your
friends.
valuable time. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you so much, Vikram sir. Thank you so much, Preeti ma'am, and thank
Thank
you,
you.
all students, for joining. We would end this.
I hope.
Yeah. Yes, ma'am.
Sorry, Kanish, please carry on. Sorry.
No, I was just ending the session. Please go on.
Okay, I'm saying that I've tried and taken up questions of every student. If I've missed question of any, I'm so sorry. That was just by chance. I wanted all your questions to be addressed, so I've done. I
Preeti,
think
also, I have given you a number. If anybody has a question, I'll be glad to answer them in person. You can just WhatsApp me, and I will be happy to help.
Right. That I'll do on the chat box right now. I'm sharing Vikram sir's number. So if you want to talk about organ donation or say or sound healing, you can get in touch with sir. Of course, please write to him, take his prior appointment, and then make a call. Just follow that protocol. Rest everything fine. So yeah, his number is already there on the chat box for everyone. He's also there on LinkedIn. So are you there on the LinkedIn too? If
Not very active, but yes, my profile is there. But I prefer the other social medias if you can. Yeah.
Okay, so by his first and last name, you can check on Instagram and other places. Fine, thanks once again. Go have. I'm sure now you're all hungry after 3-4 hours classes. So go have lunch. Have a nice day ahead to everyone. Bye bye.